Video number 5, pleating into rotational sixteenths. So once again we're going to pleat rotationally around this point, but this time into 16 sections, not into 8. But we start the same way, folding in half so that the 180 degrees is divided into 90 plus 90, and then folding into quarters so we have angles of 45 degrees. So on the right and then on the left. And then we use a pen just to mark the first fold with a dot and also the last fold with a dot. These are references, so we can now fold the edge to the dot for the next valley fold. That's a little too big. That's better. And then open the edge and now fold it right across to the dot over here. So the edge goes over to the other dot and line up the edge on the fold there, and then make the fold and then open. And now the same on the other side, that the edge goes to the first dot, just making sure everything goes to this point here, open, and then fold across to the second dot. And this divides the paper into equal eighths, and all the folds are valleys. So to make a pleat into 16, we now need to make mountains between those valleys. That's difficult, so we turn over, so these folds are now mountains themselves, and we can make valleys that in between all the mountains. So we start at the edge and fold to the first mountain, and then open, and squeeze the first mountain and put it on the second mountain, and so on, going all the way around. And each time we don't see the fold, it's underneath, out of sight. So, fourth one, fifth one. If it's a little messy over here, it doesn't really matter because you'll probably hide it or cut it off in the end. And one more here, and the final one from this side. There we go. And right at the end, turn to the other side and do one more. So this is pleated into 16. Valley mountain all the way around. And we can check that everything's okay. Just gathering up all the pleats in your hand as we go around. There we go. Then we can cut off the excess with some scissors or a knife. So cut that off that we don't need. So this is a fan, or just to change the shape again, this. And this is what we have into sixteenths. Video number 12, non-parallel pleats to make a spiral. This time we're going to make non-parallel pleats that make a spiral form, and as we often do, we're going to fold into 8 at the beginning. So half, and then quarters. We can now dot the first fold and the last fold, just to help us to create the eighths. Fold the edge to the first dot, the edge to the second dot at the other side, and turn around, and now fold the other edge to the first dot and across to the second dot. So what this does is to divide the paper there into eighths with just valley folds, and when we turn over, they're now mountain folds. So to make the spiral, what we're going to do is to make a valley fold from the corner up to the top here where the mountain touches the edge, and then we're going to repeat that so each valley fold is parallel to all the other valley folds as we go across. So what we do is from this corner down here to the top corner there to make a valley fold. So I'll just pick up the paper and make that valley fold. So can you see that this is the valley fold that you need to make? And you can keep repeating that all the way across. Now I'm making these by hand, You might want to make them using a ruler, and maybe you score the fold or some other little mechanical help there just to guide you. But so you can see how it happens in the hand, and I'm going to make them that way. So can you see that we're building up a series of parallel valley folds? If you're a bit confused which fold you need to make, does it go this way, does it go the opposite way, then you can always draw them on the paper first, just to be sure that you're doing it right. And also be careful to connect the corners as well. Just take your time to make sure the folds are very accurately put in. If you fold them short of the corners, it never quite looks right. Got two more to make. This, and finally at the other end. Actually, it's easier turning the paper around. Now, which way do I need to go? I need to go this way. So, is that right? Yes. Fold left to the corner. So we've made 8 angled folds, and if you put them all in at the same time, then you can see you make this kind of rosette shape that's rather interesting. Just flatten it down. So this is now the spiral form. If you just pull it open a little bit, it looks more attractive, like that. Can you see that it feels spiral? And if you were to have more divisions or a longer length, then it would spiral even more, of course. So one slightly curious thing about this is that if you fold it back up so it's flat, completely flat, and then find the two ends, so here's one end and here's the other end on top, and swap them. So let's see if I can do this in the camera. Just swap them around. What happens is it knits itself together and doesn't open. And then you can overlap the ends and make this rather interesting three-dimensional form that's in 7 sections because you've overlapped one of them. So the spiral can also make something that's three-dimensional, and with a little glue you can hold it together there very strongly, or pull it open and go back to the spiral. Let's just open it out. So, non-parallel spiral pleats. Video number 13, non-parallel pleats to make a zigzag. So this time we're going to make some non-parallel pleats that form a rather attractive zigzag shape. And as we often do, we're folding into 8ths to begin. So first a valley that's in the middle, and then also valley quarters. And if you've been watching the videos, you know that we make a dot on the first and also the last quarter fold. So we can now use the dots as a guide to fold in the edge there to the first dot, and the same edge then to the second dot at the top, and turn around, do the same on this side to the first dot, and then open, and then up to the second dot at the top. So what this gives us here is there's some valley folded 8ths, or if we turn over, these are now mountains. So what we're going to do is to create diagonals from the corner here to the top. So let me make one first of all, so we have something to look at. So this is the first one. So this is the first valley fold. Now on the spiral video, which was video number 12, all of the rectangles were divided with valley folds that were parallel to each other. But now, because this is a zigzag, this is the first valley. The second valley comes back as they're the mirror image of the first valley, which means we fold from here down to the bottom of the second rectangle with the valley fold. So just organising that in my hands. So can you see that the second valley fold is the mirror image of the first valley fold? And now the third valley, there is the mirror of the second. So this is what we're doing, that each new fold is the mirror image of the one before. So what happens is they all connect up to make this long zigzag. So we can just continue that all the way across. So try and be careful to fold right into the corners, right to the end of each mountain. It just looks better and works better if you do that. Rather than working by hand, you could use a ruler and a knife or something to score each of the folds if that's easier, or if your material is a bit thicker. So this is what we get, and we can open it out. So you see that this is the pattern. There, so the valley fold just runs across as a continuous zigzag from left to right, and all of the mountains are parallel to each other, and on the other side it looks very similar. So the two sides are more or less the same. Now you can bend it around and just close everything up. There you make some interesting forms that way. If you wish, what you can do is just fold up one of the edges, and it makes a kind of duck's foot or something, difficult to perhaps see when it's flat, but you've got these edges that rise up as well. So there are quite a few forms that you can make with this, or it can just collapse flat into the shape that we saw earlier, like that, you see. So this is how to make a non-parallel pleat into a zigzag. It's very similar to the spiral, but by making this into a zigzag rather than all the parallel valleys, then you make a very different pleat. Video 19, V-pleats in parallel. We're going to make two V-pleats on this sheet that are parallel to each other. Now I've already made this pleated into eighths, but I want to fold every mountain as a valley and every valley as a mountain to make all the folds universal, so they don't really mind if they're valleys or if they're mountains later on. So this is what I've made, just refolding all of the pleats again. So now we're going to just fold down at 45 degrees here near to one end, and fold this forwards and backwards just to make it very flexible. Then we're going to make a parallel fold near the other end, so that these two folds are parallel to each other. Now, can you see that? That they're parallel. So backwards and forwards, check that everything is very loose. So now we're going to make one long zigzag into a mountain. So just work slowly along and fold a zigzag in your hand. So every time we come to a node, we need to make a mountain fold here. So just pressing it loosely in the hand, and then after a while we find that everything will fold very nicely flat. So this is how we make it. Now, this is a mountain zigzag that goes across. The next zigzag is parallel. So because they're parallel, this second zigzag has to be a valley fold, not another mountain. Now, I find it quite difficult to make them as valleys, so I turn over and then do the same thing I did earlier, where each of these nodes has to be a mountain. So this has to be a mountain fold here, and just follow it along. So I'm swapping all of the mountains to valleys and the valleys to mountains here at the end of the paper. And I'm not really folding it very strongly, I'm just folding it a little soft. So here it can just make a soft shape, and finally at the end I can push everything together, just checking I've got everything in the correct place, and this is what I've got. So this is the result. Now you'll see that we started with a mountain fold at the top that's a zigzag, and the second one underneath is a valley. So every time we make these in parallel going down the pleat, it's mountain zigzag, valley zigzag, and then a mountain and a valley all the way down from one end to the other. And so this is the profile that we've made, and this itself is a zigzag which would continue if they're made more in parallel. So this is how to make parallel V-pleat folds. Video number 20, making V-pleats in opposition. So we saw before how we can make two V-pleats in parallel, one a mountain and one a valley, but this time we're going to put them in opposition, so they point in opposite directions. And it's the same preparation there to make a simple accordion pleat in 8, and then to reverse all the valleys to mountains, all the mountains to valleys, so the pleats become flexible like this. And then once we've done that, to do what we did before and to fold at one end across at about 45 degrees and press really firmly, and then fold it behind as well, and press again. Then we do the same at the other end. So we're not going to make a fold like this that's parallel to the first one. We did that before. We're going to twist it the opposite way, so they're like a mirror image of the first one, and then press that firmly again. And then we do what we did before, to open it out, and then to begin to make this long mountain zigzag that goes across. So we have to press these parallel folds into the right direction to make them mountains or valleys. Now you don't need to fold all that strongly as you go across. You can just press the folds into position as mountains or valleys, just quite gently. And then at the end everything will collapse down to make the zigzag pleat. Now we saw before that if this first one here is a mountain zigzag, the parallel one is a valley. But because they're in opposition, this second one is also a mountain. This is the difference between this and the first pattern. So now again we make another mountain, just gently pressing everything into the right shape, and at the end we can collapse them all flat. So working across, there we are, and make it flat. So here's the first one that we made before, which is a mountain, and the second one is also a mountain. It's not a mountain and a valley. So it's a very different result. And if you're making the V-pleats, it's important to know if you're making them in parallel or if you're making them in opposition.